Before we start this course, I just want to mention for those ones who wants to, you know, view and review this course. I have structured this course by parts, and I have added in the description section. I have add for each section the description and the time where you can go back and watch again this if you need to. So if you go on the description, you can find a list for each video I'm gonna put online, and you just have to press to those links, and these links will take you in future time, like in the time in a video in certain part. Yeah. Okay, so I hope this video will help you, and I hope you enjoy it as I enjoyed doing it. So let's start with the project, this project of roles and permissions. So this is the final project which I showed you in the previous video. We have the roles, we have users, and we have posts, yeah, and we're gonna step by step and create all this project. So this is the final project I'm showing you here, and this other one is the project where we're gonna integrate this, where we're gonna insert and create all these roles and permission system. So we have already the posts which are working, and we have as well the user link as well, which is not working at the moment, but we're gonna go step by step and doing it. Okay, so first of all, what we're gonna do now is to create a CRUD for the users. So here I have my code. I'm using the Visual Studio Code, and we're gonna create a CRUD for the users now. So first of all, we need to create a controller, and then we're gonna create the roles, views, and models, and whatever we need to be able to use this CRUD. So the controllers we can. So for those who don't know, the controllers are in the app HTTP controllers. Here we have some controllers already created. This is the post, this is the home, and we have the admin, the administration part, and we have the base controller, which all other extends from. We can create straight away here our file of the controller, but we're gonna use the artisan which comes with Laravel. So for those who don't know what artisan is it's a tool, it's a command line tool which comes with Laravel, and can be used to create a lot of stuff from Laravel, like controllers, model, view. So let's open a terminal here, and if you want to see all the commands we can use through artisan, we can just type, for example, php artisan, and just press enter, and here we have a whole bunch of commands which we can use through artisan in Laravel. So we have here, for example, we have the make command. It's all this list. So here is the so we have in the left side we have the command, in the right side here you can see we have what this does. So we're gonna need a controller, for example, now. Then we're gonna use the for model and some other as well. So I'm gonna do this a little bit small, clean the window, and let's look on the left side here. So we have this controller folder. So let's see how this will be created by using the next command. So let's type php artisan make controller, and then we have to add the name of our controller. In our case will be UsersController. Users, yeah. So what we can do next is to add some extra parameters to this command. So for example, we can add the model we want to use inside of this controller. You see, we have this user model which we can use it in this controller. So we need to, or we can integrate it straight away in this command. So let's type -m, and then we can specify the model here, user, and then we can add resources, and I will explain what the resources is for those who don't know what is resources without s. So s. So this resource will create all the methods we're going to use in the controller. For example, the view, edit, delete. Yeah, so we're going to see in the controller. If you want to see more of these commands, you can go back here in after artisan and put -help, and if we press enter, this will gonna give us explanation for the parameters we are using, or we can use in this command. So as you can see here, we have a list of extra parameters. For example, we are using -m, which what this does is explaining here, generate all the resources for the model, which will be used in the inside of the controller. In our case, will be the user controller, and R this will generate all the resources for the controller, all the methods and all we need for this controller. So let's clean this command and take off this help, and if we press enter now for this command, look on the left side on the controller folder, and you're gonna see the controller will be created. So inside of this controller we're gonna have all the resources, all the methods, and we're gonna have the model integrated as well, the user model. So as you can see, we have here the user controller already created. And let's close this, and now if we edit this, if we go inside of this controller, you can see all the methods. So we have the index, the create, the update, the destroy. So a part of that, we can see the user instance. Yeah, so the model is here integrated as a parameter for some of the methods, for example in the show, in the edit, and this is as well integrated in the top of the file. You can see it here. You can see it's integrated in the top. So we have the controller now. What we need to create now are the routes. So to be able to create routes, we need to edit a file which is in routes, and then the web file, so which is this one here. This is the folder, for those who don't know where these routes will be created, and this is the file, the web file. So let's edit this file, and here we have some routes which we have already created in the previous videos, in the previous course. So these are just simple routes, and we need to create something similar to this, like the route for the posts, yeah, by using resource method. Here this resource method has two parameters. The first is the name of the route, and the second parameter will be the controller we're gonna use, where we're gonna use those routes. So let's double this line, and I just have to change the parameters, which will be, in our case, we're gonna create for the users, and then the users controller. And what this does is creating all the routes for all the methods inside of our controllers to be able to be accessed through the browser. Yeah. So if we want to see what this line of code generate, we can see all the routes are generated through these lines, to these commands here inside of this file. So let's open terminal here and just type the following command, and we can see through this command we can see the routes are generated. So type php artisan route : list, and now this will bring all the list of the routes. So Laravel is saving all the routes that are generated through the web file, and then all these routes are used to be able to access the methods and the controllers. So for this line, the last line we have generated this last lines of roots. So for example, if I use this route users, and with the request get, as you can see in the left, let me just select again this to be able to see it correctly. So if I select this here, let's say for example first root, the users root, if I type this in the browser and this will get a request, what this will do will call this UsersController and will call the index method, and the second as well. But as you can see, we have a different request for this. Will be a post request, and this will call a store method inside the same controllers. Yeah, see, is this one. So this will do with all other routes. So, but don't worry if you don't understand this. Maybe you don't understand it, but we're gonna understand it because we're gonna do it and we're gonna practice all this and we're gonna test it. Yes, and you're gonna understand it how this works. Okay, so let me just close this and let me just open the left side here, and let's test the routes first. So let's, for example, if I press in user or type here user, there's nothing here, it's empty, yeah, because we don't have anything in the index method inside of this controller. So the users route here, this route will gonna have, this will be a get request and we'll call the index method. So let's add something here. For example, let's return something, no? Let's return this text. For example, if I refresh now the page, you see we can see that text, just to be able to test this route. Yeah, so next what we're gonna do, we're gonna create the views. For example, for this index method, we will need to, for example, call the view first. So we need to use the method view, and this method view will gonna have we can have multiple parameters here. Where we're gonna save this view, it's inside the views, and here we can create multiple folders and add our views. For example, we have the admin folder, and we're gonna create, for example, another folder which will be called users, and inside of this folder we're gonna keep our views for this controller. So let's create index.play.php, and then here we're gonna add some code. So let's add a h1 here, for example. Okay, so and now before we access it, we need to call it here inside of this function view. So we have to add the root, which is admin. We can do slash, but the way is use it here, it's by dot, yeah. And then we need to use users and then the name of the file, which is index. So this is the root. If we go to the folder here of the views, so the root is this admin, that's the folder admin, the user is the user folder, and the index is the file index without the extension blade. Yeah, so this is how we call our views in this method. So now if we open the browser and refresh this, you can see that our h1 we have added. So let's bring the users now. So we want to bring all the users from this from database here. So to be able to create to bring the user, we need to create a variable and assign those objects of all the users for each user by using the model. Yeah, so we have to type user and colon, and then we can use, like for example, we can use a method which specify how to bring those users. For example, we use order by, and we want to order them by ID, and the second parameter is descendant here, descendant, and then using the get, which brings all the users. So now this variable user, we have to send it to the view, and the way we send it is as a second parameter to this method view. Okay, so just put here comma, and then create like an array with a key, and the value should be the variable we have created. Yeah, so we have to create a key. I'm creating user key, and then the value for this key will be that variable which contains all our users. You can create whatever variable or key for this array you want. So we have the users here. Now what we have to do is just use the view to render them here. So before we show the user, we need to bring our layout. As we have learned before, the layout will be like, as you can see in here, we want to change only the middle here. Yeah. So for each page, we're gonna stick with the same sidebar and the same top navbar. Yeah. So the only thing will change will be this in the middle for all the pages. So that's why we need to use a layout. And our layouts are inside of the folder layouts, and then inside of this layout we have our layout, which is called dashboard. So let's import this layout. So let's go to another file which already have used it, this layout. So just we need to just copy this, just use this line. So well, all this layout. So just copy that line and just let's paste it here and close this section. Yeah. So here inside we're gonna put our table of users. Yeah. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna paste one code which I have already prepared, and just to save some time, and simply this is just a simple table which we have the head table and the bottom title. So this is the header and the footer, which contain all the columns from the database. If we go to the workbench now, if I open workbench, this is the tool I'm using for database. We can check the columns we have for this table, for the table user. So if we open the users table, by selecting here, we can see now here all these columns. So ID, name, email. Yeah, so we can bring whatever we like from here and just create as a header column. So let me just see here all the columns. You see, these are all the columns we can use to bring data. So I have bring the, as you can see, the ID, the name, the email, the role, permission, which will be created in the future. So if I go to user now here, we have this design which is empty now. Yeah. So this is table where is just a simple table. So let's now import those users by using that variable which we have brought from the which we are sending through the view method from the controller for the index method. So let me just delete all this and use a directive from Laravel, which is the for each. Yeah. And on this for each, I'm gonna use the variable I have set it in the index method, which is this one. Yeah. This is the value of the variable, but this is the key, which is the name I should use in the view. Yeah, right. So you can put here whatever name you like, but to be relevant here, we can, for example, we can put test, for example. But inside of this, we need to use that name. Just bear in mind this. So leave it. Let's leave it as a user, and let's use it. Role type user here. users, yeah, with plural, in plural, and then here user. And just let me put this out in the middle, and here what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use that this variable, which is the user variable, and bring all the you know the columns from the database, and we're gonna use curly brackets, double curly brackets, and using this variable, and then we have to call the name of, for example, let's say we want to show the ID on this, right? Let me just arrange this a little bit better, and let's duplicate those lines, and just let's bring, so first ID, the next will be the name, all these columns I specify in the header. So the next will be the email, and then I have the roles and permissions, right? And then tools. So those role and permission will be just a text, you know. But later on we're gonna bring all these once we build the role and permissions. So just leave the space on here with this text, and then later on we're gonna build it and bring it. So, well, here you can see I just have just one user at the moment, yeah. But what I need to do, you see, I have just, if I go to this database, I can see how many users I have at the moment. We have just one. Later on we're gonna create more. And then let me just, because here is missing the roles, let me just put the roles. Just put the role there, and yeah, roles. And now we have all in place, yeah. So if I refresh this, you can see we have the ID, the name, email, rule, permissions, and tools. Okay, so now we have the users. Well, we have just one user. The next, what we're gonna do here, we're gonna create those tools here. So if we go to the original project, we have these edit, view, and delete buttons, small icons which are buttons. So let's create this now. Before we create those, let's add register another user just to have more users. Yeah, so let me just log out and just try to register again. So I just create a new user, for example, let's say test1, test1, just add a password, and just for testing now it's good to have more users. So, but later on we're gonna create more. So let's register this user. This will send me to the dashboard page, the admin page, and if I go to user here, you can see I have another user. So this is the second user we have created. Okay. At the moment, this with 2 users will be fine at the moment. And later on, we're gonna create more. So, okay. So now to be able to create those buttons, let's go to this index. So you can see this tool TD. So let me just paste the code here, and then I will explain what this code is do. So let me just put the view and the edit. So these are 2 links. The first one is for the view, yeah, and the second one is to be able to edit the user. Later on we're gonna put the button for the delete, which will be a modal, yeah, which is a pop-up, which will be able, we are gonna be able to delete it. So what these links do, so this will call this root, which is users, and then we pass the ID. We put the ID to be able to identify what user we want to see. So if we want to see the roles we can access, so let's open a terminal here. And for those one who don't know how to access those routes, we have to go to the new terminal and just type php artisan route colon list. And what this does is bringing all the roots we have already created in our web file. So if you can see here, we have this link which is calling this root, which is users, and then we have the slash and the parameter, which is the ID of the user. Normally when we have link, if we don't specify other things, and this is a get request. So if we look on the roots here, let's look on this root. You see it's a get root. It looks very similar with our root. You can see here users slash and the user parameter. See, and what this does is calling. So this is the name of the root, user show, and this is calling user controller and the method show, and this will gonna pass the parameter, the ID. Internally Laravel knows what user this will be. So let me just view the second link. So let me just open again the roots and just check this one. So if we call the users, and you can see here we have, this is a get request as well. It's users. Is this the last one? So users, then we put the parameter, which is the ID, after the slash. This is the parameter, and after we put another slash, and we put the word edit. You see, so this is the root, and this is the name of the root, users edit, and this will call the users controller, and will call the method edit. This is how the routes works. This is through links, but we're gonna see later on through forms, because this is will be a bit different. Well, pretty much similar, but there is a difference. Okay, so now see, if we go to the controller, we need to go to the show method. This is the one. So inside of here we're gonna add, first of all, we're gonna let's return the view. So inside of this, let's put some text, and we're gonna test it. So when you're gonna press on this link, now when we're gonna click on this link, we're gonna call that show method. This is just an icon with this class of bootstrap tree, which is showing an A. Okay, so if you look on the left side, on the bottom, if we hover that I, you can see the link where it's pointing this. If we click on that, you see it's calling that method, which we returning to the test, just for testing now. And here what we're gonna do, we need to call a view which we have to create, and in that view we're gonna send our user, specified user. So in the folder view admins, and we have we have the users, right? And inside of here we need to create a view which will be called show.blade.php. So let's create that file first. New file. So now show.blade.php. Okay, so now we have the file. We need to call this file in this method, in the show method. So we need to pass the root, put the root inside of here. So let's call the root admin, and then users, and then .show, which was the full root for this view. And the second thing, we need to pass second parameter. But before we pass the second parameter, let's create this content of that view. So let's open again that file, and let's add the code. I'll paste the code, but before I just need to use the layout, extend the layout. So it just extends, and our layout is inside of admin dot layouts and dashboard. So this is this layout which are using inside of admin, right? So let's see again, admin, layout, and the dashboard. Yeah, so this has to be the correct route, otherwise this will not gonna work. So then we're gonna create a section. We're gonna use the content is where we identify the yield in the dashboard, and then we're gonna paste. I'm gonna paste the code and I'm gonna explain it. So this code is just a simple card which is showing some information regarding the user we want to view. Yeah, so using the user variable, we bring the name, email, number of posts. We're gonna show the roles and permissions, but later on when we're gonna create it, and then we have a button which is sending us back to. Okay, so now save the file and let's send this variable from the controller, from the show method, which is this one. Okay, so let's go back to the controller, and inside of this controller in the method show, I have to put a view method here, right? Return the view, and inside of this view, yeah, because this method is gonna search in resources in the folder view, yeah, for our views, our files of view. So okay, so first parameter is the show view, right, which is this one. So you see is this one, yeah. And then now let's add this instance. Yeah, so this parameter is Laravel is creating an instance of the user we are trying to view here. So you don't have to worry to bring that user by the ID how you normally do it. So Laravel will bring will bring straight away. So if we call this URL, yeah, user and pass the ID, Laravel will know internally, it will know which user to use or to bring from database, right? So you don't have to bring it as the old way we used to do it, by calling the ID, sending the ID like this ID, and then search by this ID. So just copy this variable and just pass it as a second parameter inside of this view, inside of this view method. So but we need to create an array, right? So we're gonna create the index of this array, which will be something similar like user, and then we pass the variable, the instance of the user. Yeah, you can use whatever name you like here, but I think user, it's what is done for, yeah, to bring the user. Okay, now if we go to the view and to the show, now this variable knows which user we are looking for. So we just need to bring the name, the email, and whatever data we need from this user. So as you can see, we have brought the name, the email, and we're gonna bring later on the number of the posts this user created, roles and permission as well, which will be created later on. Let's save this, and if we go to the browser now, refresh that, and if we want to view this user, if we press here, you see it is bringing us the information for this user, that this is tested, the name test with the email, the role, the post, this is empty, yeah, but later on, and this button which is sending us back. Let's see the second one, go back. So now we can view the information of each user. Okay, so now let's do the edit. So for this edit button, let's go and see the route, and we are calling through this link. So if we go to the view, this is the link we are calling through this link. So user and the parameter, and then /edit. If we want to know how what this link will call, we just let's open a terminal and just type php artisan route : list, and this will bring all the routes are created through the web file, right? And here the last one, it's the root, it's called through this language is calling the user controller and the edit with the parameter user in the middle, right? So let's open the controller now and go to the edit method. And here we can see we have the same parameter, the user parameter, which is using the user model. And so this will be an instance of the user we want to edit. So let's return here. So we're gonna return the view, and then we're gonna put the file we're gonna use. So will be created in admin in the .user and .edit. This is a file we have to create. So after this root of the file, we need to pass the second parameter, which is the user variable, as we have done in the show, right? So these are pretty much similar. The user variable will be sent to that view, and this will be used to render the data is already in the database for this user, right? Okay, so now I have to create a array here, and I will add the index for this array will be called the user, as the same as the variable I'm gonna send. So just type user, and then the value for this will be the variable user, which will contain the user we want to edit. So let's save this, and now let's go to the user and create a new file, and this file will be like call it edit.blade.php. And now here we need to bring the layout, right? So bring the layout and then create a form. So let's add the layout we have used in other files. So let's copy this extents and just paste it here, close the section, and here I'm gonna just type edit form, for example. And so we need to add a form here. So now I go to the browser and just click on edit. You see we have the edit form text. So this is what this will gonna bring. So let's create a form now. Let's I will add a h2 just to have it big text, and just paste. I will paste a form code, and all is plain. Each line is very simple. This is just a form. Let me just make it wider and to be able to see it in full. So what this is doing is just bringing some input file fields, right, for the name, for the email, for the password. And first of all, here as a attribute we have this action attribute, which is specifying the route where this form will be submitted, right? So this is user, and then we pass the ID here, and then we have the method specified as a post, right? But we need to change that by using the directive method of Laravel, which will be a patch. So we need to do that to be able to edit this. So as you can see here, and the last thing is the SCRF, which is regarding the security of the form. So it's very important to use this in the form, otherwise this will not gonna work. Now let's open a terminal here, and let me just open the list of the routes again, and I will show you how this the route. I'm gonna explain you again the routes, because I think it's important to understand that. So Here we have the roots for this, well, all the roots for this project, right? Which are generated through the web file. So here we have the method patch here, put patch, and this is the root, yeah. So the root is user, and then we pass the ID of the user, yeah. So this will know what user will edit, right? So let me explain you how these roots work. So as you can see, we have three similar roots, right? User and then pass the parameters. But the difference between those are the type of request. You see, this is a get, this is a put patch, and we have the delete request. So that's the difference between those roots. So even if they are look similar, right? So this first one is looking for the show method. This is looking for the update method. What I mean is what makes the difference is the type of the request, right? And the last one here is calling the destroy method. We're gonna see later on, yeah? Well, I hope this is clear now. And then now I'm gonna explain this form. So we just create some input forms for the username here, which will bring the username, the email, and then the password and the confirm password, and the last one will be the button for submit. So we have this is a form using classes for Bootstrap, and then what we're gonna do later on, we're gonna insert here in this place the roles and the permissions, but we're gonna do it later on when we're gonna create the roles and permissions. So if now we save this and go to the browser and you refresh that, well, I go back and just let me see, all saved. Yeah, all is saved. So now if I click to edit button for this user, you can see the form is showing the form with the data with all data for this user. Yeah. So how this works? Well, what I've done here, I use the value attribute and use the variable user and bring the name, right? So I just pass the name inside the value, the attribute value, yeah, through the user variable, which we send from the edit method, right? Which is this one here, this array, yeah. The key and the value of this array, yeah. Okay, so now we have the form of edit, yeah. And now what this form is doing, after we edit this, we can add some extra data here. When we submit this, if we go here, we see that's the root we are calling, yeah. Through the method patch, we are calling the user with the ID and we passing the ID of this user here in the action attribute. So we need to specify the method here, because this is a method post, but we change it to patch, and this way this will know, this method patch will specify what type or where is the root we're gonna send this data, right? You can see here we have the patch, and this request patch through this root we're gonna call the update method, and inside of this update method we're gonna save the new data we're gonna update for this user. So let's edit this update inside of the controller. So if we go to the controller now, we go to the update method. So this is the method we're gonna edit now and add the code which will update this user. Okay, so now we have here as the parameter, we have the request, right? And what this does will bring all the data we're gonna send through the form. And the second parameter is the user, the instance of the user we want to update. So that's the two parameter we gonna add, we gonna use through this method. So what we can do here, for example, we can use the variable user, and we gonna specify the name of the column, which is the name in this case, and we can assign through from the request the field which is the field for the name, right? And this way we can set this variable from the database, well, the column from the database with the data that came from the form. That's because on the request the input for the name it's called name. You can see these attribute names are the names of the fields we're gonna send inside of the request, and then we're gonna set it up in the value attribute, right? So you can see here we are setting up this through the value attribute. This is very important to be able to send the values, right? So these are the values for each form, and once we get these values, we use the request variable, and we set up for each one. So let's test to be able to see what is. Let's do dd here, and just paste request here, leave just request, and if we go here we can see, if we refresh this page, you can see we have the instance of the request, which if you go to the request parameter and inside we have parameters, we have all the values for the form. You see the method, the second value is the token. If we go to the form, I can show you to be sure you understand this. So this one is the method, and the second one CSRF is the token, and then the name, the email, and the rest of it here. So we have the name, email, and the password confirm. This is null because we haven't sent anything. We haven't put nothing to the password. So the values if we haven't changed it, this is the value. But if we change, if we add something extra, if we refresh again here, we can see we have this value changed, and this will be updated later. We will be updated to the database. So this is what this request will do. Yeah, these parameters. This has all the value for the form, through the form. Yeah. So through this we can bring each value of the field of the form. So as you can see, we can bring the name. Yeah. If we want to bring the email, for example, let's bring the email. So we can bring the email. If we refresh this, we can have the email. So and this is how it works with all of them. This how we can get the values for the form, and now we can update the value through the user instance to the variable. You see, which is this one, and we can update the database fields. Yeah, right. Okay, so I just try to explain this a little bit, just for those one who maybe are struggling with this, but I hope now it's clear. So let's duplicate these lines, and let's put the email here, for example, because this is this is the field in the database, and the value on the from the form, which is this one, through the request. Let's do for the password as well. But the difference here will for the password, I mean the field in the database, it's okay, but let's check first. Let's do a condition here and check if the request for the password is not null, then we will change the password in the database. Otherwise we're gonna leave it as it is at the moment, right? So let me just put this in the middle. Let's just copy that, just put this up, and let me change this. So this is the name password of the field, right? Which is this one. That's the correct one. Okay, this is what we use inside the form and send it through the request. Okay, so now we need to do something else here. We need to use the hash and then the method make, and this will transform this password to the right format of the password. But we have to insert this hash in our file. So let me just go up here and insert this. So this is the hash, and now I can use it on here. So once we have set up this, we need to save this. So let's use the variable user and then the method save. And after we save this, we have to return using redirect method and redirect to the users. And what this will do, this is the root for the index method, this method index, right? And this is where we have all the users, and we will see the changes. So if everything is right now, and no, we have no errors. If I go back once and refresh the page, and now let's add or change this username. For example, let's do it test 11, and just change the email as well, test 11, and I'm not gonna add any password. I will leave it like it, and if I do submit, you can see this have been changed, the value of the name and the value of the email. So this is how we can edit the user as well. So we have the edit in place, which is working with the basic value. So I'm gonna put back this as it was before. So now let's create the delete of the user. Okay, so we need to add a button which will allow us to delete this user. So first of all, we're gonna need to add this button on the tools, yeah, and we're gonna use the destroy method inside of the controller. So if I go to the code here, code editor, we have this destroy method, but before we do that, we have to go to the index, and here we have those two buttons which are already working for the view and edit. Now let's add the other button for the delete. So let me paste this code and I will explain it. So this is it's a link as well, but what this does, there is no link, no root on here. We're just calling a modal, a pop-up box through this through this data attribute. So it's very important to have those attributes, those three, yeah, because we're gonna use them in the JavaScript in jQuery to send the data to the controller, yeah. So we have the icon for the trash bin, which is representing the delete button. Now if we save this and go and refresh this page, we can see the recycle bin here. Yeah, this is not doing anything at the moment, but let's add the code to bring that functionality. So this will bring a pop-up, as I said, and inside of this pop-up we're gonna do the delete. So I'm just gonna paste the code here, and this code is just a box where we have the button for delete. Yeah, this is a plugin, well, yeah, something from Bootstrap, and you can do more research on this. So what this does through this data target is identifying the ID of this box, as you can see, and this box will appear and will open, and inside of this pop-up, this box, there is a little bit of text, and then is a button. You see, inside of this form we have the functionality to do the request for deleting this. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna set up the value of the action inside of the jQuery. So we're gonna do a jQuery in a moment, and we're gonna set up this value of the action attribute. And we have the method which changed to the request to delete, and then we have the CSRF which holds the security of the form. And then we have this on click inside of this link. What this does is saying that when we click on this link, so this refers to this link, then closest, we are looking for the closest form to this link, and we are submitting this form. And once we submit the form, we're gonna submit this to the route we're gonna set in the action attribute through the jQuery, which we're gonna do in a moment. So let me just paste the code for the jQuery. Let me just create a section. So this section, we will gonna call it JS underscore user underscore page, and this will identify our JavaScript, our script, right? And we have to put this in our layout. So let me just go to the dashboard here. If we go down here, we have another one which is for the post page. So let me just copy that and paste it, and let me just copy that name and put the name for this section. So all the scripts I'm gonna put inside of this section, this will be rendered inside of the dashboard every time I'm calling the user page. So every time I'm calling the user page, which is this one, the JavaScript or the jQuery code I'm putting in this section will show here, right? So as you can see, we have already a yield which is used for the post page. So this is how Laravel organized the scripts and the style as well, to not call this for each page. Of every page will have their own scripts, call it, and just when the page will be used. So let me just paste the code here, and I will explain what this does. So this script, what this will do, the first line is just identifying the modal, and says when the modal is activated, we're gonna run all this code inside of this function. So we're just simply setting some variables, but if you need more information, if we go to this page, you can see this example I've chosen from this page, and just go to this link. This is the example I have chosen, and you can read more about this if you want on this page. It's just like this pop-up, and so let's go back, and let me just try to explain this. As I said, we have some variables. First variable, I have chosen selected the button. Well, the button, I'm referring to the button, the first link, right? The link with the ID, the delete modal. So this is data target attribute. So I just want to collect this value, the value of data user ID, which I created, and this will be the ID of the user, because I need to identify the user I want to delete through this ID. So I just collect this ID through this attribute, and then I'm just selecting that button, right? And then I'm searching for that ID through the attribute data, which is called user ID. Yeah, is this user ID. With the button .data, we are having access to the data attributes we are creating. This user ID is the data user ID I've created, which is this one here. Yeah, as you can see, we have all other data attributes which are this is custom attributes, right? And then here I have the ID in this variable, and I need to send that to the action attribute to the form. So I'm just creating a modal variable, and I'm saying this, which refers to the modal. Yeah, refers to the modal, the pop-up box, which is this code here, all this code here. So this is the modal, right? And then let me just show you all the code. Maybe you want to copy, and then I'm just selecting the modal. Well, the second line, well, this line here, you don't have to do it. It's just something I have tested before. It's just I'm searching for a hidden field which I have created here, but you don't have to use it. I'm just gonna comment this, and I just have tested before. Okay, but if you need to send other values, you have to do it like this. Yes, I'm just setting this value here. So I'm just looking through the class and the ID, and this together is the identifier of that field, hidden field, and I'm setting the value with the user ID, with the variable which contains the ID, which is this one here, right? Well, you don't have to do this. I'm just explain you what this means. Okay, so let me just comment this as well, because I'm not going to use this. And the last line here, what I'm doing, I'm just using the modal, and then the dot find, which is the function which is searching for the form, and I'm looking for the attribute inside of the form, which is the attribute action, and I'm setting this value, which is this one here, which is URL, which we're gonna use to call the delete method inside the controller. So we need to set up this URL. Yeah, so this is the URL we are adding as a value to this attribute, which is this action of this form, which is inside of the modal. Okay, so now if we go to the controller, so here we're gonna have the instance of the user we want to delete, and let's use the variable user, and Laravel will know if we use now the delete method. So let's type delete, and Laravel will know what user to delete. Okay, so after this will be deleted, we have to do redirect, and we're gonna call again the user, which users, the page of users, which will show the users table. And this is how we are deleting the users. And then now, if let's test this, if I refresh the page, and I got an error here. Let me just check. Okay, so I think I know what is. Oh, this is missing some semicolon here, and I don't know why is this, but anyway, so let's refresh again the page, and let me just try to delete. See, if I click on one of them, I got this pop-up, this box, and let me just test. Let me inspect and see the ID we are sending. So you can see this is the route we are setting through the jQuery, right? So this is the route which contain as well the ID of the user. This is how we identify the user we want to delete. Then we have this method we are changing through inside of the hidden input and setting the delete method, right? And then we have the token, the token of the form. Okay, so let me delete this now. So if I press delete, as you can see, the user has been deleted, and now we have the delete button working as well. Okay, so now let's add here in this section a button which will say create new user. So what this button will do, we'll call the controller, user controller, and we're gonna, if we go to the controller now, we're gonna call the method create, right, which is this one. So this method will call a view which is in the view folder, which will be called create, and from this create file we, through a form, we're gonna submit the data from that form to back to the controller to this method, which is the method store. And here we're gonna have the functionality, the logic, where we're gonna save the user in the database. So let's first add the button. Then if we go to the view, let's go to the index, and here on top, let me just paste this code. It's just a box with a text with h2, and then we have a link that it's calling this URL, which is calling the method create in the controller. So let's open terminal and just type php artisan route : list, and this will bring the list of the routes. Here we have all the routes. So if you remember, we have the route to create, so is this one. Yeah, what this does is just calling this create method inside of the controller, right? Okay, now let me just close this, and let me show you this button, this full code. And just this is just a button which has a link, and we have these classes, bootstrap classes, which will make it view like a button. Okay, let me just save this, and let me just go to the controller, and here inside of this method I'm just gonna return, let me just redirect, so return view, and inside of this we're gonna this will look in the folder views, and let me just type the root of this admin dot users and then dot create, which we need to create this file. So let's create this file. At the moment this method will just call this file. So let me just go to user and just new file and create .blade.php. Okay, so now here inside of this, let me just copy the layout as in other file, like for example in this one, just copy this, and let me just paste this because we're using the same layout. So let me just close the section, and inside of here we're gonna bring a form. Yeah, just put here the form, which I'm gonna paste in a moment, and because I have this already prepared. So let me just put that h2, h1 better, and create new user, and let me just paste that form, which is just a form that will help us to collect the data for the user. It's similar to edit, except that we are not bringing the value from the database. Yeah, we have like for example we have for the username, yeah, we have for the which is his name, we have the email. So this is pretty much similar to the edit one. The difference is we don't have the value set it up in the value, because we don't have any value from the database. We just use this Laravel old method, which is saving the data in the session after the validation. So the good data, the good data which will be validated. So the correct one will be put it back on the place, just to don't lose the one which is passing the validation, right? So that's the way Laravel is doing this. Okay, so this is just what this is doing, is just creating a form. And then we have these two sections where they are be empty. They are be empty at the moment, because this will be for the role and permissions, and later on we're gonna do this as well. And then we have the submit button, and then we have the post method. So method which is post type of request, and then we have the URL. Now if I go to the browser, and let me just refresh this, and now we can see the button to create this. And if you look on the left side, we can see the root, which is user create. Let me just see. Oh, it's not saved, so let me just save this, and let me just go back and refresh, and now you can see we have the form for the user. So we can create now a new user, adding name, email, and password, and submit. Now if we have submit, this is a client validation. So this validation inside of the input. So this is the type attribute. So this is the kind of validation of the client side. So we have the text, email, passwords. This is one of the way we gonna validate this, but we're gonna have the server validation as well, which we're gonna do it through the Laravel validations. So let me just show you. Here is another validation, which is HTML validation, which says that this is required. So this has to be filled up. And another validation is the main length, which is minimum 8 characters. Okay, so now let's see. This is validated through the HTML, and let me just see. This we're gonna call this store method, and we have the request. Let me just do dd dump and die the request, and let's see what the form is sending to this method. Okay, through this instance, through these parameters, to this parameter. And now if I save this and go to the page, refresh, and let's put some data here. And if I do submit, as you can see, if you go to the request parameters, and we have the data we are receiving through the request, right? So we have the token, we have the name, we have the email, and we have the password, and then password confirmation, right? So this is the data we are receiving in this method story. If I go to the controller here, what I have to do, use this request variable, and let me just create a variable which I'm gonna call user, and then I'm just gonna call the user model. Well, I'm gonna create a new instance, right? New user, and then this variable is ready to use it to be able to insert the data in the database. I can save data through this variable by using this request, which is as I said, this is coming from the form in the view. So I just use the user and just select which is this variable, yeah, and then just use the field on the table, which is name. Let me just go to the database and show you the you see we have name, email, password, and this is what we'll need at the moment. Create and update will be automatic. This is something which will be added automatically. And the other thing we need to save it. So let's see, name equal request and the field of the name, which is the name, the same, because we have had the same. If you want to try to see what this brings from the review, let's do dd, well, through the request and then the name. Let's do a dd. Let's see. You can check with everything like this to see what the form is sending us. So let me just refresh this. You see, I have the name. If I do the email, password, and so on. So we can use, this is how we select data from the form, yeah? Let me just repeat this. Let me delete this, and let me just put email here, because this is in database. Then we have the request as well, email, because this is a field which has the name, the value of the name email, and the other one which is the password, right? But remember, we have done in edit, we have done the check if this is not empty, but this we don't have to check, because this has to be, this will be required, but we need to do the hash. We need to use the hash to transform the password, to make the password in the right format of the password, right? So let me just change this password, and yeah, password. Let me just, because this is password with two s's. Once we set up this, let me just use user, and then the method save, and this what it'll do, will save the user, and then once again we return and redirect, and then let's just call the users. Where is the users table? Yeah. So now if everything is correct, this should work. I save this. Let me go to the browser. Let me just go back and refresh this. And let me just try. Let's test. Let me just put a password, simple password, and now if I do submit now, as you can see, we have a new user which is created successfully. Let me just create another one. Let's test 4, password, repeat password, and submit. And now, as you can see, this works perfectly. We have the third user, and we have the CRUD for the users. We can create, edit, view, and so on. Okay, now what we need to do now, we're gonna create a validation for the form inside of the server validation. So we have this form in the create page, right, which is this form, which allows us to create the user. We already have the validation through the HTML, which this is a validation through the client, right, through the browser. But this is not that secure. So as you can see here, we have the type, which is in this case is the type text, type email, type password. What this means is forcing the form to be filled with this type of data. So if it's not filled with this type of data, we're gonna have a error message, right? But this is not that secure, because any user who has a little bit of knowledge can go to the inspect here, and he can, for example, change the type of data. For example, in this input, we can change from the email to text now, and now with this change it, we can insert simple text. So we need to add the validation inside of the controller, so through the server. Okay, so if you want more documentation regarding this validation, if we go to the Laravel, if we go to the official documentation, if we type here validation, you can see here we have how this validation, if we go to the basic and then validation, here we can see, if we scroll down, we can see a lot of information about the validation. Anyway, let's do the validation here for the store method. Okay, so if I press enter here, I will add a comment which says validate the fields, and let's use the variable request, which is this one here, and through this variable we can use the validation. Yeah, so let me just type request and then call the method validate. Yeah, and inside of this method, as a parameter, we need to specify in an array, we have to specify the columns we're going to validate. So first of all, let's go to the form, and here we have the type of the inputs, the fields, yeah, through the name. So this is how we identify the fields, the inputs. So let's say for the name, we create the key name, and then we add the validation for this. Let's say this should be required. Then if we need to add another validation, we just need to add a we need to add a pipe, and this is how we separate the number of the validation for the field, for each field on the form. So this first one is just saying that this field name for the name is required, and this will not allow to be empty field. Okay, so we need to fill it. We can check with the database the maximum number of characters. We can check it with database. In this case, I will put a max 255. Okay, so let's leave this. Let's do for the email. This obviously this will be required as well, and then I want to be unique, that no other user can have the same user email. So this should be unique for each user, right? And I need to specify here the name of the table, which will be the user. Okay, so if I go to the documentation, we can see if we go to this link, we can see the available validation rules. So just go here and use this type, so this list of validations, and maybe you need more. So you can see we have unique here, and here is explaining me what type of values we can have for this unique, right? And this is explaining me the elements or attributes or how we can call this, or what we can use for this unique. Yeah, so the name of the table, the name of the column, the ID of the column, except. So just go through this page and we can see what we can use. So I have specified the name of the table here, which should be unique in this table. Another parameter I can put here is the email. So this is specifying that this should be an email. Okay, so this is not accepting anything else than email format. Okay, and then I can put as well here a max character, which will be 255. Yeah. Well, this is not very difficult. As you can see, it's very simple to validate, right? Laravel will do it internally. So as I said, go to this page and you can find here more information about the validations in Laravel, and I think they have a great guide here. And let's do for the password as well. So let's type for the password, and the validation for the password, let's do first. I have to do it required as well, and then I have to say how many characters I need to have for this. So this has to be between 8 comma and 255. So this is the minimum and the maximum characters we can have in this field. Yeah. And another parameter we can do has to be confirmed. This is confirmed with the other field here. So if we have this field, we need to confirm with the second one, which is this one. You see, this password name has to match with this word, right? Those two has to match, right? It's very important, this one, and in the second field here, we can type this confirmation word, at the end of this phrase, right? So this is very important, and this is how is confirming, right? This is how this confirm that. Okay, so if we go to the documentation, if I go to confirm, here is saying what or how this should be done, right? With this word confirmed at the end of the second field, right? Let's do for the password confirm. I just put the password confirm here, and the only thing I should add here required. Okay, so now these are our validation for this form. So Laravel will check all this validation for our form, and let me just test this. But before we can test this, let me just go to validation. We have something here. I just need to show the error messages. So as you can see here, display the validation errors. We need to copy this. Yeah, just copy this code, because Laravel use this variable inside the view, and checking if there is any message, any error message, and if there is any error message, this is created or generated by the validation, or not just for the validations, other parts of the code. So, but this will be used for the validation. So as you can see, this will save in the flash. This will be flashed to the session, right? So, and this check it if there is any message in the session. Then we will show this message in the view, right? So by using this error variable, right? So let me just copy this, and let me just put it in the view. For example, we can put it here, and and this will show if there is any error through the validation. So it's checking if there is an error, and if there is, so we go inside of using a for each and showing each of the messages, okay, in a list. Okay, so let me just check, go back to the project here, refresh this, and if I do submit, well, this is the validation of the client in the browser. So we need to take off this. Let me just take off this just to be able to test the server one. So let me just take off this, just delete this. Let me just delete those ones. So I'll put them back, but at the moment I will take them off just to be able to test the server one validation. Yeah. Okay, so let me save, refresh, and if I do submit, as you can see, these are all the error messages are generated through the validation inside of the Laravel in the server, right? Let me just put here, for example, something. Let me just put test 5, for example, and just put here just test and just submit. Well, this is another validation on the client. Let me just take off, because this is the type, you know, which is validating as well. Let me just take off for the moment, but I'll put it back. Okay. Okay, so anyway, so let me just refresh again, just type something here. And let me try it just a text without email, and if I do submit, you can see here, and this is validated, so this is correct. There is no error for this field. You see that for the email, which is this one, and then we have for the passwords, yeah, which are empty, and these are required. Remember, we have done the required validation. So let me just put this back, and this is working now. And this is how this validation works, yeah, and on the server side. Okay, let me just test this again. Let me just create a test 5, for example. If I do submit, you see the password confirmation doesn't match because I put a different password in both. So just put same. As you can see here, this data came back. That's because the old method, right? This is bringing again the data which was validated, which passed the validation, right? And this is what this method is doing. Okay, so now if I go to the browser and just match the password, submit, and the validation was correct, and the new user is created, like you can see here. Okay, so now let's do the same for the edit, for the form of edit, right? The user edit. If we click on this link, we have the edit form, and here, but here we don't have the validation on the client side. On the server side, we have the client. As you can see, these pop-ups comes from the HTML, which is in the browser, but this is good, but it's not that secure, so we need to add in the server as well. So let's go to the controller, just copy this, and I'm just gonna paste on the edit method. Well, actually is not edit, it's update. So it is here where we're gonna validate the data. So, but we have to do some changes. So the password is not required here, and either the password confirmation, so we don't need to do it. Okay, so what do we need to do? Go to create and just copy this code, because this is showing the error messages, and we need to add it in the edit as well to be able to show the errors for the validation. So let me just refresh this. if I leave this empty, well, I have the validation for the client, which are this one. So let me just take off this and refresh. Let me just test that. So as you can see, this is working, but you know, there is a message here which the email has already been taken, you see. We have to take off this validation. Well, you can do here whatever you like, you know. I'm gonna take off this, yeah, but just if I submit now, I have another error here. So you have to adjust this for your needs now here, yeah. But now you see how this validations works. Just I'm gonna take off this as well. So for the editing, this should be fine. So let me just test. So I think this is working. Yeah. Well, this is how this works. The validation works in the server in Laravel. Yeah. Well, we have validation on the client side and on the server side as well. If you like this video, please give a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to our channel.